Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date and help the channel grow. We really appreciate you spending some time with us today. And now, on with the show. You are listening to the Narrated, Not the Popular Opinion with the one and only Gray. Greetings, opinion nerds. It is I, the one they call Gray, and today we're celebrating Christmas in the MCU with the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special on this random act of opinion coming up right now. I feel like I like thinking more than I like feeling sometimes, opinion nerds. When we talk about movies, we spend a lot of time talking about ephemeral emotional concepts. We give these things names like heart and soul. Sometimes we call it catching the feels. Whatever term we use, we place a great amount of emphasis on the idea, so much so that we're often willing to turn off major portions of our most precious intellectual faculties and allow ourselves to be led through a piece of storytelling by a broad emotional tether. For many, this is considered virtuous, an understanding that the purpose of storytelling is to move and provoke on a deep and intimate level, and there are cases where this is something that is useful and even preferential, especially when the material is focused on the right subject. When all is said and done, that's when we have to decide whether or not all the feels alone were worth it. Nerds, I have seen the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, and despite the overwhelming presence of the feels, I don't think it was worth it. More importantly, I don't feel it was worth it either. The Guardians have taken on a number of new responsibilities as the galaxy's protectors, and after hearing a story about how their displaced human leader had Christmas taken from him, Mantis and Drax take it upon themselves to give him the best Christmas ever, complete with his hero Kevin Bacon literally wrapped up with a big red bow. What could possibly go wrong? James Gunn writes and directs the streaming special starring Chris Pratt, Dave Bautista, Palm Clementif, Sean Gunn, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel, Karen Gillan, and Kevin Bacon. Now, I'm going to try to keep the spoilers to a minimum, but honestly, if you can't guess how this is going to go without watching it, I don't know what to tell you. I'm stepping outside of my normal voice-on-high detached third-person presence to talk about this special because this is one of those pieces that I can't discuss objectively. I mean, I could, but I don't think there's a lot of value in it this time. There's a line I usually draw on the celluloid saying that once something crosses it, I lose all my objectivity. I do not appreciate being asked to turn my brain off. It feels like an admission that the people on the other side of that transaction are telling me they don't intend to put in the effort to engage me and are asking me to lower my standards. My response to that is usually something along the lines of, look, if you're not going to give a shit, then why should I? This isn't the same as knowingly engaging with some piece of children's material with no expectation that it's going to be any kind of intellectual exercise. This special may be made for the immature, but it wasn't made for children, so I feel no real impulse to allow this level of flexibility. This special doesn't just want me to turn off my brain. It wants me to be stupid so it can be stupid in return. First, some technical stuff. The special just looks cheap. It's got this amazing duality where the CG work on characters like the murderous Rocket Raccoon and Groot, the talking tree person, look great given their limited screen time, while everything else looks broad and flat and dull. It's pretty apparent this was filmed at some point during the production of the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, so you can expect to see the same sets for the Guardians' new ship and their base, along with the specific makeup and costuming. And yet, this is another example of how none of that matters if you don't take the time to really shape and curate every shot. Lighting for this kind of quick shoot needs to be set up to make the subjects visible in just about any situation, while framings and depth of field have to take in mind what devices people will be watching the show on, so nothing is being shot for the movie screen and everything is just kind of blah for the effort. The gist of the plot is that Clementif's Mantis and Bautista's Drax want to give Pratt's Peter Quill a Christmas, believing he's been deprived of something important to him since he was taken from Earth as a kid. Drax comes up with a brilliant idea. Give Peter Kevin Bacon as a present. The joke is meant to be that Drax believes the Baconator is a genuine hero who has literally done all the things his film characters have, either because Peter never mentioned to anyone that Kevin Bacon is just an actor, or because Drax is a moron who doesn't listen. I think we're supposed to believe it's the latter, but since the special doesn't make a distinction and it doesn't really end up mattering, it becomes kind of a moot point. This business is used as a setup for a bit where Drax, Mantis, and later Nebula disgustedly declare that actors are worthless pieces of shit, but that bit is only funny if you acknowledge that everyone doing their best puke-face takeover KB being an actor is themselves an actor. The fact that Bacon Double Kevin is not a real hero never becomes relevant unless you want to count his being told how he inspired Peter to be a hero, which we have to take at its word considering that any Bacon bits were only used for humor in any previous films. The characters never find themselves in a situation where they expect him to do something and he fails to do so, and Peter is well aware of the fact that Kevin Smoke Bacon is, in fact, an actor. The whole unnecessary thing becomes a setup for a meta comment that, in typical James Gunn fashion, goes on too long and isn't funny. More difficult to manage is that the entire premise of the special is based on accepting that neither Mantis or Drax understands the concept of kidnapping is bad. Never mind that the show wants us to believe that Drax is dumb enough to mistake a person in a robot costume for a real robot and proceeds to beat him to death, apparently. Forget the fact that the show can't maintain a sense of internal continuity for 5 minutes when Mantis, after asking to be thrown over a gate Drax can easily jump over, is later shown leaping high enough to have hurdled the fence multiple times in a row. Like fence jumping, it doesn't take a giant leap to understand that you can't just roll up on a planet and snatch people. I can guess the intent is that once they cross a certain line, Mantis decides the only way out is through and puts the whammy on Kevin Roadhouse Bacon Supreme, but since the show never dramatizes them reaching that point of no return, it makes it look like she thinks the whole thing is just fucking dandy. It's lunatic sauce. Where the show really misses the mark, at least in my opinion, is that it treats a huge bombshell revelation that Mantis is Peter's sister like this soft bookend apropos of fucking nothing. It's the implied emotional heart of the whole piece, and it's treated like it's not really important. It's not something Peter is looking for, it's only peripherally related to the overarching found family theme of the Guardians franchise, and it comes completely out of nowhere in the show. No, I had to check online to be sure I hadn't missed anything from before. Structurally, it's the complete wrong fucking move. It's anti-drama. It feels like there's about 20 minutes of storytelling that's been pulled out to make space for 2 musical numbers, an argument about whether or not a candy cane is a man, and a bit with a telekinetic dog. This show is everything I have come to dislike about James Gunn as a storyteller. It swings wide from puerile bullshit to sentimental schmaltz with virtually nothing linking the two, but it also manages to slide in something genuine and sincere that makes you want to forgive all the rest of the stupid, juvenile crap. Gunn frustrates me in that way because his work asks you to turn off your brain, but it isn't like he's creating experimental expressionist films. There's still a logic, a structure of themes and motifs, and the skeleton of an internal continuity to his films. But it's all swaddled up in this bubble wrap of bullshit, and I end up finding that I can't be bothered to choke down the spoonfuls of dead brain cells necessary to get to the few morsels of sincerity. Filmmaking is hard work. It's not a job for the sleight of mind, so I have to assume that Gunn is a reasonably intelligent person, which means what he's doing is all a matter of choice. Every quip about sensitive nipples or fart-eating pantomime or crass Jackson Pollock references there by design. But you can't get to Peter reaching out for his mother in the first Guardians film without going through the dance-off to save the galaxy. Everything sincere and real must be matched by some bit of humor you can barely stand to sit through, and I can't fucking tell if that makes James Gunn a genius or just some guy who's managed to inspire people to indulge him as he makes movies like he's 12 years old. So here's where evaluations like this get tricky. Did a lot of the things that were supposed to make me laugh? Yes, a lot of them did. Did the things that were supposed to give me the feels inspire said feels? Same. A lot of the flying feelies made it safely to land. So by every measure of intent versus result, this show is a rousing success, and there are a lot of people who seem to like it. I guess? Okay, I'm not really seeing anyone talk about it, but the 40-odd reviews for it on Metacritic are pretty positive, so that has to count for something. But everyone seems to agree that, despite being amusing and heartwarming, that the special is pretty disposable entertainment. And yeah, it really doesn't need to be anything else, and no one is asking it to be besides maybe me and the 3 or 4 other asshole nerds who seem to hate stupid fun things. Only, I don't hate stupid fun things. I just like to think I maintain a reasonable tolerance for stupidity beyond which you lose me. And none of this is to say that no one should enjoy something like this, or that my perspective on how these things should be produced is the only one that should matter, and the entire world should bow down before my preferences like the God among men my cats believe me to be. I don't care in the slightest what people like or don't like. What I don't like is the accusation that my likes and dislikes are the result of something that is fundamentally wrong with me in my relationship to the material, or that the ability to consciously reduce one's intellectual throughput to the equivalent levels of either a Beavis or a Butthead for the purpose of watching an animated talking raccoon get misty-eyed over receiving a stolen bionic limb is some kind of virtue. There is a big cynical part of me that wants to say the only reason people are being so kind to this show is because of the impression that they're getting it for free with their Disney Plus subscription, even though that's not how that works. I really question how many of them would be so quick to declare it just the most heartwarming gift of the Christmas season if they had to, schedule a trip out of the house and pay specifically for a chance to see it. Of the reviews I could manage to get through, the content of which are typically about 3/4 plot recap, all of them just seem to be mimicking some variation on it's fun and cute, and Drax and Mantis are fun and cute, and it's not really important or anything, but did I mention that it's kind of fun and kind of cute, and Kevin Bacon looks like he's having a good time, and hey, it's really fun and cute, and the few reviews that bother to discuss the substantive content of the show are not as pleased with how fun and cute it is. It's almost as if critics were avoiding discussing the subject altogether because they know if they have to engage with the material on any intellectual level at all, it might just stop being so fucking cute and fun. And no one wants to be that person that shits on a harmless Christmas special. No one, apparently, except me. I don't like being this person. I like liking things, and generally it makes me feel good to feel good. But there are a few things I don't do in order to feel good. I don't drink, I don't smoke weed, I don't shoot H. These are all things you can do to feel good that I don't participate in because they make you dumber for the effort. That's what watching this show felt like, only I could feel myself getting dumber in the process, and I never did get to the point where I felt good. While a show like this is a pretty extreme example, the call to pursue the feels before real style over substance approach with superhero media is coming increasingly frequently from inside the house, with the ever-contrarian fanbase solidly entering their flop era, demanding more comic book campiness and declaring anyone who pushes back against that as pretentious. Camp, by the way, is defined as something considered appealing because of its bad taste or ironic value for those playing at home. It's something that we know isn't good and that we would never engage with seriously, but do so when we find it amusing. The most frustrating thing about this is that just about everyone agrees that there's nothing there to really take away from this show, and it's all just kind of a frivolous waste of time to even complain about. This show is like the storytelling equivalent of a box of pixie sticks. It'll feel good for a little while, but it has zero nutritional value, and you'll probably just make yourself sick if you have too much. We keep heading down this road, and we're going to end up with a case of intellectual diabetes. And I'm not looking to see a whole generation of people getting their feet lopped off because they can't stop stuffing themselves with cinematic garbage. I'm by no means suggesting that the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special is the Rubicon for superhero adaptations. I wouldn't dare assign so much meaning to something so meaningless. But James Gunn's approach is currently the avant-garde of this kind of material, and the industry is falling in line behind him as it marches towards its inevitable sugar crash. In the name of fun, we're slowly being led back to a place of ridicule and obscurity, and I, for one, neither think nor feel that's such a good thing. This has been the Narrated, Not the Popular Opinion. As always, I have been Gray, and if you like what you heard, you can leave a tip at our Ko-Fi page at ko-fi.com/notthepopularopinion. You can follow us on Twitter at @only_Gray, and don't forget our main page at notthepopularopinion.wordpress.com, where you'll find more great articles just like this. Thanks again for listening, and remember, if you're as good to others as you are to yourself, we might just make it through this mess. See ya.